Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the Soul Hoops channel. My name is Ryan, and I am bringing you guys another solo video. It's been a while. Been probably about a month since I've recorded a solo video. I've just been busy with school mostly, some other stuff. I'm about to move, so a lot on my plate right now. But we're back. Some news: the NBA season is approaching pretty fast. I think we're about only, when this goes up, a day away from a few teams' first media days, so that's big. Preseason's going to be here before we know it. Less than a month out from the actual regular season. It's coming at us all pretty fast. So before that all starts, I wanted to make a video that kind of just goes over every single NBA team's biggest question, or at least the biggest question that I'm looking for in each team for this next season. So we're going to go in alphabetical order by market, and we're going to go through every single team and just talk about what big questions they have for this next season. Let's get into it. First, we have the Atlanta Hawks, and my biggest question for this team is, can Young and Murray work? Obviously, there's a lot of talent on this team, not even just Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter. They've got a great bench, all of that, great new coach, but we've got to see it for a full season. I think this team found a lot in that Boston series that you can look at and be like, okay, this is replicable. They can carry on in this momentum, but we have to see it. Trae Young and DeJounte Murray in year one didn't look great. They didn't look bad, but they didn't look great. They've got to improve on offense. They've got to improve on defense. Just overall, making that look smoother and making it look like it can work long term. And I think Quinn Snyder is the coach for that job, for sure. There are some other questions this team has, like who will start at power forward? Are they going to be able to guard anything on the perimeter? Stuff like that. But I think this is the biggest question for them this year. Next, we have Boston. There are a lot of ways one could go with this, but for me, it's who will step up as their leader in Smart's absence. Obviously, Smart's playmaking on the floor, I think, is going to be hard to replicate also, but even more important than that, who's going to be their leader? Who's going to take over this locker room? Who's going to be the vocal guy out there who's, making sure things happen, making sure this team closes out games? That's a huge question mark for me. It seems like the Brad Stevens and the Celtics organization is kind of betting on Jason Tatum doing that. I don't really know how much I buy into that. I'll need to see it. We'll need to see what happens this season. Celtics will be really good, obviously. I think they'll be a great team. But who's going to be that guy for them? I just don't know. Next, we have the Brooklyn Nets. Kind of a simple question that might be a little bit open-ended, but is there enough creation on offense, like self-creation, playmaking creation, anything? Is there enough for this offense to really zip around? Because it looks like kind of not. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie is kind of a ball dominant player. Mikal Bridges is a ball dominant player, or not a ball dominant player, but when he does get the ball, he's not a very seasoned playmaker yet. He's just kind of either in score mode or maybe make some quick plays near the end of the shot clock, but not that kind of guy. Cam Johnson, not that kind of guy. Ben Simmons, I've got to see it. I'm not going to believe anything until I see it for a long period of time. So yeah, I think Brooklyn's defense will be great. If they make the play-in, which I think is pretty possible, it's going to be because of their defense. Offense, there are questions for sure. Next, we've got the Charlotte Hornets. Can this team take some steps toward winning? Obviously, last year was just super weird all around for them, and it felt like they had taken some steps back just as an organization. LaMelo Ball was hurt, so that obviously messes things up. He looks great when he did play, but he was hurt. He didn't look great. He looked pretty good. Miles Bridges, he didn't play last year. He's back, I guess, which is unfortunate if you ask me. But he is a 20-point per game scorer when we last saw him, so we can't just completely ignore that. Brandon Miller How NBA ready will he be right away? Terry Rozier is still on the team. They've got their centers. Kai Jones is interesting, both on and off the court. And yeah, can this team make some steps like back in the right direction? You know, I don't know if I'm more optimistic than most, but I think they can. But I don't know. They're just a weird team because I feel like there are a lot of teams trying to win in the East, and I just don't know that. I don't know if they have it. Next, we've got the Chicago Bulls. Can they show that this thing is like worth it? Can they show that keeping this team together is worth it? You know, they are pretty committed to this idea of just kind of rolling it out with Caruso and Zach and DeMar and Vucevic, and we just haven't really been shown much that would indicate that it's like a core or a plan that's worth investing into. So yeah, I mean, they need to show something, or I feel like they'll have no choice but to blow it up this trade deadline or next summer. It's like they've got to show us something, without a doubt. Like they can't keep on doing this. Next, we've got the Cavs. Will they play with intensity when it matters? We saw last year that, you know, they got exposed in the playoffs. A year-long issue for them was they couldn't play physical, they couldn't play intense when it mattered. In close games, they'd get physically outmatched. They weren't able to keep up. I don't think they played hard enough. Simple as that. And we saw that especially in the playoffs because Julius Randle and Mitchell Robinson just kind of dominated their bigs on the boards. Mitchell and Garland didn't have the greatest shooting series. They had a great shooting. They both had great shooting seasons, but that's the biggest question for me. Like, there are other questions for sure, like who's going to start at small forward, but I didn't include that because I think they kind of got a lot closer to answering that question with their offseason signings of Max Strus and Georges Niang. So I just kind of didn't include that question for that reason. But this is their biggest problem, in my opinion. And I'm sure that we'll see improvement at that because there's no way they come away from that New York series without knowing a bit more. But that's my biggest question. Next, we've got the Mavs. Was their offseason enough to fix their defense? Their defense was atrocious last year. I mean, there's just no way. There's no other way to put it. Luka just basically didn't try on defense the entire year. Bringing in Kyrie didn't help. Dorian Finney-Smith out the door. Maxi Kleber didn't play a ton. Dwight Powell was Dwight Powell. Christian Wood is like as negative of a defender as you can possibly be in the NBA. Their defense is ultimately what completely shot them out of the play-in race at the end of the year. And I think they did make some steps in the right direction this offseason. Grant Williams, a good defender in my opinion. They drafted well. I don't remember their names right now. I'm terribly sorry. Derek Lively, Omax, that other guy. I think they drafted with defense in mind for sure. I think they brought in another piece, more of like a defensive-minded piece as well. So, is that enough though? Like, they need to have a good defense if they want to make the play-in or playoffs. And this team has lofty expectations for themselves. And defense, like with Luka and Kyrie, offense is going to be taken care of, but it's defense which is the biggest issue in my opinion. Denver Nuggets, who will be their 7th and 8th guys during the postseason? I think this is a question that we all kind of have because the starters they're set in stone. They've got the best starting 5 in the league in my opinion. The playoffs proved that. But even last year with Bruce Brown and Jeff Green on the team, I think that they were a bit thin in the postseason. Like, they didn't really have a lot of other guys that could play for consistent minutes. Even Christian Brown, who was super impressive for a rookie, even then he kind of faded in and out of being impactful for that team. I think he had that one big finals game. I think it was game 3 against Miami. But who are going to be the guys that step up? They might have to make a trade. But if not, it's like Zeke Naji. I like him. He's a Minnesota guy. Shout out. But I don't know if he's ready. Peyton Watson. I don't know if his offense has come around enough. Reggie Jackson is, not super ideal in his current year. So I just don't. I don't know. They're gonna have to find a way to replace Bruce Brown and Jeff Green's impact off the bench. But I don't know. I don't like this question. This question's big, I think, but I would still bet on them winning the championship next year. So I don't know. I just they're the Denver Nuggets. Like they're gonna be okay. Next, Detroit Pistons. Which of their bigs are going to be part of the core moving forward? This team has a logjam at the center position. Isaiah Stewart, Marvin Bagley, Jalen Duren, who I really like, but is kind of not really getting a ton of opportunity because they just brought in James Wiseman, who was the number 2 overall pick just 3 years ago, and I think he's going to end up getting a lot of play because of that. They've got a lot of bigs who are all going to be kind of fighting for the same minutes, and with the exception of Duren, I feel like Wiseman and Stewart and Bagley they don't play in similar ways, but I feel like their purpose is to do similar things. So one big question I have is like, which of those bigs are gonna stay part of the core? I mean, Cade and Ivy are pretty solidified at that 1 and 2, even though they don't fit that great together. And Ausar, I think Ausar Thompson is going to be really good. I'm pretty optimistic on him, but it's the bigs which I wonder about. Golden State Warriors, can their young guys be trusted in the postseason? This has been a question for the last few years, right? Their young guys, and specifically Jordan Poole, Jonathan Kuminga, and Moses Moody, come playoff time, it feels like they can't be trusted all the time. They got rid of Jordan Poole and brought in Chris Paul, Chris Paul can be trusted in the playoffs. Obviously, he's one of the greatest point guards to ever play the game. He'll be fine, but I don't know if they have enough on that roster anymore to avoid playing Moody and Kuminga. And those 2 guys are going to have to be ready, and the Golden State Warriors are going to have to be able to trust them come playoff time, because that's where their depth is. That's where it is. They put themselves in this predicament where they have to be relying on those guys for their playoff depth. It's not ideal for a team that's trying to ride out Steph's prime and compete for more championships, but I think they missed on some drafts, and this is kind of the situation they're in. So their young guys are going to have to get playoff burn, and they're going to have to be trusted, because there's no beating around the bush with this team anymore. Houston Rockets. A lot of questions, obviously, but like, can they just operate like a normal team again? Like, please just, once they finally rid themselves of Kevin Porter Jr., just get him as far away from the league as possible. I just want the Rockets to operate like a functional franchise. I mean, I think they've done a lot of things already to kind of fix that. Ime Udoka is kind of more of like a hard-nosed coach who I don't think is going to let the same stuff that Steven Silas let fly. It's going to be different for sure. And also bringing in culture setters like Fred VanVleet, who I think is like perfect at that, is going to help a lot. Another year for Jalen Green and Jabari Smith, Şengün to kind of all gel together and mature a little bit. Also Dylan Brooks, love him or hate him. I mean, I think he's going to help, I think, a lot on that court, as far as like maybe, I don't know, organizing, but just being a veteran presence. Jeff Green they brought in, drafted well, Cam Whitmore, Amen Thompson. I mean, I almost put for this question, like, how are they going to manage all the young guys' minutes? Because Amen, Jalen, Bari, Şengün, Tari Eason, Whitmore, it's like, it adds up pretty fast. But yeah, can we just see them have like a normal year, like where it's not like, where we aren't hearing reports about like horrible things going on in that locker room? I think we're going to need to. Next is, how far can Halliburton alone take them? Obviously, he's not the only good player on the team, but this team kind of lives or dies by Halliburton. He's going to need to be like all NBA level if they want to make the playoffs, and I think he can do that. It's not like out of the question, but Um, who's going to step up like around him for that to happen? Like Miles Turner had a great year last year. Can he produce? Can he like bump those numbers up even more? I don't know. Bruce Brown is not like second or third star material. He's so impactful in other ways, but that's not really his thing. Obi Toppin, who I'm still super high on. I haven't sold any of my Obi Toppin stock. Is he ready to go from what he was in New York to just like jumping into that bigger role for Indiana? I don't know. Andrew Nemhard, I think he'll be better this season, right? I think he had a pretty good rookie season, underrated rookie season, but I don't know how ready he is. Benedict Mathurin, we'll have to see. Buddy Hield's going to be gone, and that was like, Buddy was Halliburton's like favorite assist partner last year, so those numbers will need to be made up for. I don't know. This Pacers team is hard to rank because I can see them being really good. I can see them being pretty bad. Yeah, people are going to have to step up around him, and Halliburton is going to. We'll see how he can just push this team, because I think it's possible he can push them pretty far. Next is the Clippers. Will they take the regular season seriously? This is obviously a huge question. Like, this is a pretty important season for the Clippers. Like they're running out of chances. I think this is kind of their last chance as this team to really prove that this thing is worth keeping together. It's not like the Bulls, because the Clippers, when they actually play, are really good. It's that they never play. I mean, maybe the new load management rules can help kind of temper a lot of the inconsistencies in who's playing from night to night with this team. Obviously, you can never avoid real injuries, and a lot of times Paul George and Kawhi do have real injuries, but like I don't know if they can get away with another season of rest as much as they have been. We'll see. It's going to be an important season for the Clippers. Health is obviously a big thing, but it's a bit cliche. I mean, I think that the better question is like how, like, will they take the regular season more seriously overall? Lakers, how will their half-court offense look in the postseason? That's the biggest question for this team. I mean, the talent is undeniable. You still got LeBron James, who isn't the LeBron James from even 3 years ago, but is still LeBron James. He's still going to be probably the most impactful player on the court in nearly every game he plays in. Anthony Davis, when he is on, is the best defender in the world, basically. But he kind of wanes in and out of intensity and aggression. Austin Reeves, I was completely wrong about him. Austin Reeves is like legit good. Their offseason was great, bringing in the guys off the bench, or maybe even start. I mean, Gabe Vincent could start ahead of D'Angelo Russell, Taurean Prince, Christian Wood, Cam Reddish, those types of guys. D'Lo, like I just said, Rui Hachimura, Vanderbilt. Like, they've got a super talented team, but their offense can look, specifically the half-court offense, because transition offense, they're great, but half-court offense, which is what you need to kind of be relying on in the playoffs. Like last year, they couldn't do it. That's why they lost against Denver. I mean, the Lakers defensively were great last playoffs. I mean, they shut down the Golden State Warriors by playing good defense, kind of all centered on Anthony Davis, obviously. But like, yeah, it was a sweep against Denver, but those games weren't blowouts. I mean, they were in most of them. It's just that when it came to it, they couldn't stop Jokic, which, I mean, nobody can. But also, they couldn't score the half court. That's going to need to be something that they at least find something that's close to an answer for, or I think they're toast in the playoffs. So we're not toast, but like they've got championship aspirations, obviously, and I think they have the talent to do that, but their half-court offense needs to be figured out, and I think it can be. With a full training camp, full team, it'll be easier for sure. Grizzlies, can they stay afloat without Ja Morant? Ja is only expected to, he's only suspended for a minimum of 25 games, right? I think he has some like incentives and other stuff he needs to do before he can actually return after the 25 games. But assuming he just misses 25 games, that's not an insignificant like portion of the season. 25 games is is like it's like a hair less than a third. That can be the difference. I mean, we saw how tightly packed the Western Conference was last year. It could be the same again. I mean, like last year, the difference between the 4th seed, so hosting a playoff series, versus the 9 or 10 seed was like 4 games. And in those first 25 games without Ja Morant, if the Grizzlies only win like 8, 9 games, 10 games, they might find themselves in a bit of a hole, which I think they could probably get out of with Ja Morant and the whole team there. But that hole, I don't think will. If they got themselves in a hole, like things might get a little bit dicey. And if they can stay like above 500, like they could stay like 3 or 4 games above 500 in that 25 games, and they'll be back to normal. But that's what I've got to see. I'm just wondering how can they stay afloat, and just kind of hold it down until Ja gets back. Miami Heat, do they have enough if they miss out on Dame? Huge question, right? They kind of went about their entire offseason with the idea that they're going to be, that they're going to have Dame in their roster come training camp. And as of September 26th, it's looking like Dame is less likely to end up on the Miami Heat this season than he was maybe a few weeks ago. So right now it's things are pointing to them not getting Damian Lillard. Do they have enough? I mean, it's a question we ask a lot with this team, and we've asked the last few years, do they have enough? Do they have enough? We always think they don't, but they kind of end up having enough just because of the way they play. They usually figure it out. But you look at this year's roster, I like actually this time I don't know if they can. I mean, I feel like they're going to need more juice, more firepower, more scoring, more punch if they're going to want to make another trip to the finals. And without Dame, I just don't know if they can do that. But we'll see. Certainly anything can happen. There's news coming out every single day about what's going to happen. So this could all change. Milwaukee Bucks, how can they convince Giannis they can still win? This is a huge question. As we talked about on the podcast, the comments that Giannis has been making over the last few months has been putting an enormous amount of pressure on the Milwaukee Bucks organization. How are they gonna just ignore that for the season and play their best basketball? Because they've got to convince Giannis that they can still win this thing, that this is still the place to be if they want to win a championship. I think they're going to be healthy this season. Chris Middleton is, I think, kind of back to being healthy. Drew Holiday back to being healthy. Brook Lopez under contract again. I think they had a decent, fine off season with bringing in players. But Giannis isn't going to want to be here long term if they can't show that they can win, and that's what they've got to do. They've got to prove that. They absolutely have to. Timberwolves, can they prove that going all in was worth it? Similar to the Clippers, this is also a super important season for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They've got to prove it. Like there's nothing else that they can do. Like last year, disappointing season for sure, but you can make sense of it by saying, Cat missed a bunch of time. They had a big trade halfway through the season. A bunch of other weird injuries, like the whole team getting the flu in like the most important stretch of games. And I think a lot of those excuses are valid. Like those are things that happen that were just unavoidable for the most part. And that's what it was. But this next season, they don't have that same liberty. They can't, unless there's like enormous injuries. Knock on wood. They have to show that this thing is worth it, and that what they're that this makes sense, because if not, that's when things start to get maybe not scary, but that's when things start to really be examined with this team, and tough decisions have to be made, like about Cat or about Rudy or about coaching, management, all of that. So this is a do or die season for the Timberwolves, and that's the biggest question looming over them. Pelicans, will Zion play? I mean, I tried to not do a lot of injury stuff in these questions just because injuries are unavoidable, but when a guy gets injured that much, it's like what else can you ask? I mean, the Pelicans, like we all see the vision because it's played out. I mean, before Zion got injured last year, they were the first seed in the Western Conference. They were. The combination of Zion plus Ingram plus Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, who's going to miss a little bit of time this season due to like an injury he suffered. CJ McCollum, Valanciunas, all their other guys. Like, this team could be super, super good, but it all depends on if Zion Williamson can play. That's it. Like, he's got to. And if he has another season where he plays like under 30, 40 games, they also are going to have to make some tough decisions after that. Next, we've got the New York Knicks. And my question is, like, how far can this team reasonably go? Or more so, how far can a Jalen Brunson-led team reasonably go? Because as much as Jalen Brunson is a legit star in this league, and as good as he is, as good as he was last season, we've seen in the NBA that you need like actual legit superstars if you want to make deep playoff pushes and finals runs. The Knicks want to win. They want to go as far as they can. But I think there's a little bit of a ceiling with this team when you just think about like how far can a Jalen Brunson team actually go. Last year's second round was great for them. We'll see if they can make the second round again. I think people would be happy about that. But a first round exit or playoff miss, I think would sting pretty bad. I think they'll be good again. I think they'll be fine. What's the ceiling of this team? Like, how far can they actually go? Next, we got the Thunder. My question is, are they experienced enough to win? The Thunder have been kind of creeping, hanging out in the back. Definitely some tanking years. Last year, they took some steps forward. Shea became like amazing. Jalen Williams, great selection. Josh Giddey improved a lot. Team was young and it was fun, exciting, but I think they're looking to take a step and kind of join the rest of the Western Conference winning teams. But are they ready for that? Like, do they have enough experience? I am a bit lower on the Thunder than I think most people are. Like, a lot of people think they're the easiest lock in the world for the playoffs or the high play-in, and I don't really think so. There are a lot of teams going for it in the Western Conference, like a lot. There are like legit like 11 or maybe even 12 like playoff aspiring teams, and some teams are going to have to miss it. I think the Thunder could very easily miss it, and I just don't know if they have the experience or the age enough yet to win and do what they want to do. Orlando. Which of their guards are part of the core? So a little bit different from Detroit's, where I was asking about which of the bigs are part of the core. For Orlando, it's the guards. Markelle Fultz, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony, Anthony Black. Those are the four guards in the team, and I think this team this year could end up revealing a lot about who is kind of on the way out and who is here to stay. We just saw a report the other day that said that they might be looking to get off of Cole Anthony eventually, which it could also be Markelle Fultz, could also be Jalen Suggs. I don't think it'll be Anthony Black, just because I think they drafted him pretty high, and I think he's got like a lot of potential. But we'll see who's here to stay. I mean, Cole Anthony, really solid player, but you got to think that for a backup point guard, maybe they don't need maybe they could use him as an asset to address some other needs. Jalen Suggs I love Jalen Suggs, another Minnesota guy. Shout out. I love the way he plays. He plays really, really hard on defense. But the offense, like, he's going to have to just make some shots sooner than later. Markelle Fultz, also really solid player, but not much of a shooter. I have questions about him as a playoff player. He also plays the one, and I think Anthony Black also could eventually just take a spot if things break right. So, big questions to ask over in Orlando. But like everywhere else in the roster, we got set. Like Franz and Paulo, they're set over there. But the guards, some questions for sure. Philly, can they keep this thing together? Can they keep this thing together? That's a big question. I mean, like they're kind of in the shit right now. James Harden doesn't want to be there. He is expected to not commit 100% to this team this season. I just saw a report a few minutes ago that's saying that he's not expected to join the Sixers with Media Day, which is kind of a bad sign already. Joel Embiid is in his prime, and they've already just kind of let a few years of that prime just go. They lost some of their players in free agency, like McDaniels and Milton. It's not looking good over there. I think this thing could implode like pretty much any day now. But if they do have another run or two in them, can they just keep this thing together and see what happens? I've also heard that they're kind of in the Dame conversations across the airwaves, so maybe things could develop with that, but we just don't know for sure. Tyrese Maxey, blah blah blah. That's kind of my biggest question for them. Next is the Phoenix Suns. Opposite of the Lakers, where it's like what are the go-to sets the Lakers are going to run in the postseason? It's like, how are the Suns going to defend? Like, how are they going to stop anybody? I'm not that much of a believer in the Suns team, and like, I don't know. I'm not going to ignore the talent offensively, obviously, because you just can't, and that I think could be definitely enough to win a first-round playoff series. Like if they match up against the Kings or maybe even the Timberwolves, or one of those kind of, I don't know about like middling, but like kind of lower end playoff teams. I think their shot creation by itself could win a series against those teams, but you're talking second round, conference finals, let alone finals. I don't know if that defense can hold up. And like if it can't, it's a problem because they're not going over the second apron and pushing all their chips in the middle like this just to win a first round playoff series. I mean, they aren't going to be satisfied with that. This team wants to win a championship. They want to win it now. Not in 2 years, not in 3 years, but like now. And I don't know if that defense can hold up. Maybe Frank Vogel as their new coach can just like scheme the team out of any lack of defensive personnel. But if you had to ask me, I don't love the odds of that happening. So we'll see. They've got some defensive issues to address. Blazers, what will be their identity post Damian Lillard? Like I kind of just said with the Heat, the Dame stuff has kind of hit a bit of a wall as far as like what's real and what isn't, like what teams are actually interested. Is a deal getting done by the trade deadline? Is it getting done by next week? Could it be done by tonight? Are teams actually making offers or just having kind of conversations? We have no idea. But my biggest thing is like after Damian Lillard leaves, like how is this organization and team kind of going to respond as a unit, and how are they going to make steps in the right direction and kind of build their own thing out after Dame leaves? Because we see that once star players like with such name and such meaning to that organization, once they leave, sometimes it can take organizations a few years to kind of bounce back and kind of find themselves again. We're seeing that right now with the Rockets and James Harden. I think they're just now kind of starting to bounce back from that whole thing. So that's my biggest question to the Blazers is like, how do they react to that once Dame inevitably does get traded? Because I feel like he's going to have to eventually. Sacramento Kings, how replicable was last season? Obviously, I think everybody loves the Kings. I mean, their season last year was so fun. One of the most fun teams to watch in the entire NBA. De'Aaron Fox, most clutch player in the NBA. Sabonis being that like dribble handoff hub on the perimeter. Their shooters, Keegan Murray, Red Velvet, Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk. This team was so fun to watch. But my biggest question is, are teams going to have, like, teams are expecting this now. They're expecting the Kings to be a team that's kind of in it looking to win. And is what they did last year, like, replicable? I mean, like, I don't think they're going to fall off a cliff, but if you told me that they were going to be the 3 seed again this season, I would be a bit surprised, just to be completely transparent. So how much can they repeat of last season? How, like, their injury luck was also crazy last season. I think that helped them out a lot in the seedings. But how can they improve off last season? How can they make sure they don't fall off? How can they stay in the mix? That's my biggest question for them. Spurs, how much of Wemby's skill will transfer right away? Victor Wembanyama has been the most hyped prospect since LeBron James, and it's for a reason. It's not just because he's 7'3" and has that crazy body type and wingspan. It's because of the things that he's been able to do as far as offensive self-creation, jump shooting off the dribble, off movement, the crazy rebounds and putbacks up. Like, a lot of that stuff is, like, those are the things that go viral when it comes to Wemby. And we saw, like, when he was in Vegas playing at G League Ignite, he had like a great stretch of shooting 3-pointers where he was really, really good from outside. And that wasn't the case the whole season for his French team. The 3-point shot isn't very consistent with Wemby. And, like, I think people definitely do know that, but I also don't think people know that people's expectations for Wembanyama right out the gate, I think, are pretty high. Like, he's not going to be doing all the same stuff he was doing overseas for the Spurs next season. Like, all that offensive self-creation, crazy, like, dribble, shoot, off the rim, off the rebound, back in the hoop. That's not going to happen all the time right away, at least. But I do wonder how much of Wemby's skill will be present right away. Because I don't think, at the same time, I don't think he'll be like a purely like a lob catcher, rim protector type big. I think he's going to have to do more than that, and I think he should do more than that on offense, and give him the ball a little bit more and on the outside to see what he can do. But there are people that believe that this team can be like a sneaky play-in team. I'm not one of them. I think it's a bit too early for that, but that could happen if Wemby has like an insane rookie season, which I don't think is like completely out of the question just because of how good he is. But like how much of Wembanyama are we going to be able to see right away? Toronto Raptors, what is the plan? I was trying to think of another question for this team for a super long time, and I just couldn't do it. Like, there's just too much going on here to really break it down and get the whole picture. So what is the plan? Like what are they doing? We got to see something that indicates that, okay, they're on the path to being a good team, or they're on the path to kind of hitting the reset. They are doing neither right now. Um, I don't think this team doesn't even know what the plan is like at all. Like they're just kind of doing whatever. So they're also kind of in the Dame conversations. I'm kind of bored of it at this point. But that's where they're at. Utah, what will they get out of their guards? So the Jazz season last year was like a story of two halves, right? The first half, super fun to watch. They kind of took all their guys who were effectively just throwaways from other teams and put together a really solid first half of the season. Then they traded everybody away, or not everybody, but they traded a lot of their guys away. And by the end of the season, they were just kind of bad. And but like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler are the guys that shined for them the most last season. They brought in John Collins, another front court player. They drafted front court players with the exception of Keyonte George. Jordan Clarkson's still on the team. But if this team wants to kind of get back in that play-in mix that they were in a lot of last season, we're going to need to see some more like high-level guard play, because the guards of this team are really not where they need to be as far as like other play-in teams. I mean, Ochai Agbaji, I think is going to be pretty good, and I think he's going to start as a shooting guard. Keyonte George, we'll see where he ends up. Jordan Clarkson, we'll see where he kind of fits in the rest of this roster now that he's still just kind of here. The guards are going to need to show more for sure. And the last team, the Washington Wizards. I couldn't really find like a good question for this team just because they have zero expectations. It's just like have a fun year, see what you got, hope for some fun games. But like if they at the beginning of the season, at least, like teams, even if they're bad, they usually try to win as many games as they can at the beginning of the season. They don't start tanking until later on. So at least at the beginning, when they are in close games that they want to win, like what's the game plan? Like who's going to be their guy? Is it Jordan Poole? I don't know. Is it Kyle Kuzma? Is it just give the ball to Tyus Jones and see what he can set up? Maybe they give it to Denny. Maybe they give it to frickin' Corey Kispert. Who knows? What's the pecking order when it comes to this offense? Because I feel like this could go a lot of different ways, especially early on. So, and that's it. So I just went over all 30 NBA teams. Let me know in the comments what you thought of my questions and reasoning behind it. Feel free to, I guess, like, I don't want to say argue with me, but like if you have your opinion that differs from mine, I'd love to hear it. Just to kind of get some discourse going in the comments, maybe. I'd love to hear anything like that. But yeah, we're another podcast on Friday. So that's what it is. Thank you for watching, everybody, and have a